All right, I'd like to call to order the meeting of the East Amwell. I'm going to put my speaker on here. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the East Amwell Township Committee.
Adequate notice of the meeting of the Township Committee has been provided by a notice sent to the official newspapers of the Township, posted to the Township website, posted on the bulletin board of the municipal building, and filed with the Township Clerk as required by law on January 2nd, 2024. Ms. Casper Bloom?
Here.
Ms. Enton? Mr. Nardi?
Here.
Mr. Dendis?
Here.
Mayor DePiero?
Here. All right, would everyone stand with me, join for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome everyone. You can read the announcements on the agenda. Let's get right to open to the public. The meeting is now open to the public. Would anyone like to comment? Yes, please. Laura?
Okay, quicker than I thought. Good evening, I'm Laura Olson. I'm in the village. Maybe you've seen my name on a few pieces of paper. I spoke to the mayor earlier this week and put together a few questions which I shared with him. I understand that he has shared same with Ms. Hammond.
At NJD, DOT.
At DOT,
Yep.
at DOT. And I know you're all probably not familiar with the project, so I'll give just a little bit of what my goals were. So I will share this with you.
So Laura, if I may, let me just let everyone else in. So NJDOT has a bridge replacement project on Route 179. It's over the Backbrook, very close to Melbourne Lane, and Laura has a house there. Some years ago, DOT was trying to move forward, and there were some concerns. The Township Committee wanted DOT rightly to come back with a plan. They've recently come back with a plan, which I was able to share with Laura, and she gave me some questions, which I've sent back to NJDOT, and I guess she's here today to give you guys some more background. I'll be reporting back after we hear back from DOT, and I get to talk with her. So I'm sorry. I just wanted to let them know the context,
That's
please.
okay. I could probably spend a half hour here just going over the history of this place, but I'll spare you the gory details. But this has been a project since 1997, when they did a road widening of 179 Old York Road. And finally put in some drainage that was needed, but they stopped it 200 feet from the creek because they didn't have any permits. I was promised at the time that they wouldn't forget, they would proceed with it, and it got lost in the shuffle and didn't reemerge. So anyway, the plan they brought up in 2019 didn't address my concerns. Obviously got lost in the sauce. Anyway, short and sweet.
Thank you.
This is, it's got the map that Dante mentioned, and on it you can see a couple check marks on the legend, which also is addressed in here.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So I know you're going to talk about this later, so this is my 2 cents, my concerns. We're waiting for some response from NJDOT. My experience has been that they don't like to put a whole lot in writing. They'll do a lot on the phone, but it's hard to be accountable if you don't put it in writing, you know? So anyway, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I also will offer a site walk, sometimes actually seeing an area in question, helps you visualize. You know, this flat piece of paper doesn't really do a whole lot for you. Doesn't do much for me either. Can't visualize some of that stuff. A short update, as things keep rolling along here. The gas company came today, and now I have little yellow flags all over my yard and my neighbor's yard. And they were down hacking their way through the brush down at the creek. I have no idea what they put down there. I questioned them, they said it was in advance of soil borings that the state's going to be doing. I don't know. We'll wait and see when the diggers come what happens next. So, but like I said, if you have questions, I'm happy to answer whatever I can. Sure.
What's your concern with it? I don't
Well,
have.
Mike, we can get into, you
okay.
can do it back more if you want. I was gonna
No,
say.
it's okay. You can give it to me.
No, that's fine. Yeah, go ahead. That's fine.
What's the
Sure, do you want to-
I'm just. This is all new to me. So what's the concern with the project?
They
Yeah.
left an open ditch.
Okay.
The water stands, there's no maintenance, it clogs up. The promise was that they were gonna finish it, they didn't, and so now they've offered to at least take it somewhere further down the pipe. The previous plan had the guardrail coming up to my driveway,
Okay.
and with no closing in of the ditch. I'm in the village, the rest of the village is pipe drainage. I just figured it's better, it used to stop right across road, everything flooded, it was deadheaded there. And so that's what brought the whole thing up. Like I said, it's been a project since 1997.
Mm-hmm.
They did so much, and then been waiting and dealing with other aspects.
So it looks like DOT wants to move forward, and so before this township adopts a resolution saying we're in support, we want to make sure a couple things are taken care of. My short list is how close the guardrail comes to her driveway,
Right.
how far away the subsurface pipe can extend away from her driveway,
Mhm.
and the nature of the swale to make sure that that's appropriate and kept. So DOT has come back with a plan that is much improved to address Ms. Olson's concerns on that. So we just wanted some specifics on distances
Understood.
to find
Yeah.
out.
I know it's hard to see this little tiny stuff. This is my driveway,
Okay.
that's guardrail.
The dotted line is.
That was in 2019.
Okay.
This was after 20 years of trying to get them to finish the piping job. They came back with absolutely nothing, like they'd never heard of it before. And so
Okay.
the bottom is what they're proposing now,
Mm-hmm.
and I still don't know measurements because there's no measurements on this thing. That was part of my question.
So the summary, Mike, is that before we bring this back to the council, we wanted to get some answers from DOT on exactly where, the distances for where the guardrail would go in the new plan, where the swale will go in the new plan,
Mhm.
and where the pipe will end in the new plan. So when we have that, I'll be able to go over that with Laura, make sure it looks good to her. Then we'll have a full discussion on it and have a resolution
Sounds good.
to propose going forward. So, the bottom line is, Mayor Wolf, when he was dealing with this, was quite rightly made sure that DOT wasn't proceeding without addressing the residents' concerns. So this is our chance to finally get them to the point of doing that. I think we're very close. So once we get those measurements, we'll be able to get back to it. And we'll let you know so you can come and
That's
ask
why I
some
put the
questions.
goal, if you read my little thing here, I know this is very.
Is this their map or your map?
So
Oh,
their-
they're not.
Okay.
their map on top is their original plan.
Okay.
I have measurements
To
on
deal
mine.
with her concerns, they provided the bottom plan.
Okay.
So you'll see how the location of the guardrail is different. You'll see where the pipe is different. So it's definitely DOT's going the right direction. We just want to make sure it all is
Mhm.
locked in before we make a decision, make sure the township residents happy.
Yeah, hopefully it can be
They
helpful.
have made maintenance and whatever totally impossible or very difficult for us to keep moving the guardrail, making the bank steeper. You can't mow there, they don't mow there.
Mhm.
Their answer to everything is what I call Agent Orange, but it's obviously a herbicide of some sort, and just everything gets killed. And like I said, I will offer site walks. I encourage a site walk. I will treat you to even pictures if you would like. So, I guess that's it, like I said.
Thank you. We really appreciate you coming.
Thank
I'll,
you.
I'll get back to you as soon as DOT's responded, and then we'll invite you back when we take some action.
I hope we can be helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Other members of the public wish to make comment? Francis?
Francis Gavigan, East Amwell. I discussed this with Linda yesterday, didn't have an opportunity to give you a heads up. But I was following up on an application and asked, well, what's on the agenda for going to the planning board and others, and learned about 3 projects, one of which is power sports on that lot next to Sweet Valley. And they wanna move out of Flemington and build a building there and sell their ATVs and power equipment. And also at their current location, they have powder coating, whatever that is. My ask for the township is, since transparency is a big thing these days, would be to put something on the website, a list of applications that are coming in process or resolved, so people can see what's up without me having to tell them, or something like that, and then I get the phone calls. But there's no harm, there's no regulatory obligation, but I think it's a good thing to let people know, just the way you're letting people know about the bridge and DOT and all of that. And I remember the prior discussions, to just sort of put some things in there. One of the issues that has come up is we're siloed. Here's a committee, here's the village committee, here's the historic preservation, here's zoning, here's application, and I did get a call by a resident who was kind of blindsided with notice to tear down an 1878 building by tomorrow, which isn't going to happen. And so also, Kristen, I think her name is, was kind enough to send me the list of what the current policies or properties are that are in historic districts or of interest. And my thought being to come up with some processes for the zoning officer, construction, and also for the public, that you know, if it's in the historic district and it's on the list, and I can turn that PDF into a website, then the routing for the discussion would go to historic preservation. If not, then it proceeds normally, and that's consistent with the ordinance. And the same thing for a destruction or whatever. I'll bring up again the need for a destruction permit and things like that. But in a kinder, gentler way to communicate what's going on. I learned subsequently that there's an audit going on with what we weren't getting from West Amwell, and so they sent out a flurry of like 20 things that have to be tidied up last week. I don't know the details. I just know that an 1878 barn that is on the side of the former John Ringo Tavern, that is a contributing element to the National Registry and historic things, that potentially can help us get grants, because we're in this little historic district, that some time or some ways of working with people so that it's not just such a shock. It went to one of the owners who wants out of it, and it's dumped in the lap of another one. I think we can do better. I think we can communicate better, and it doesn't have to be that onerous, and it can help the zoning officer follow a process. You know, no harm, no foul.
So Francis, if you have any suggestions on processes, please write something up and
I
give
will.
it to us and we'll take a look.
I just wanted,
So that,
yeah.
so
sorry.
that members of the public don't get concerned, what Francis is mentioning about the dilapidated barn next to Northfield Bank, someone had called me to say that an issue was happening, so I called West Amwell Construction Department, and they told me that complaints had been made from the neighbor that shingles and nails and other things were falling off the old building into the parking lot where Northfield Bank and the convenience store or the deli is. And so the NOV that went out, it was a typical NOV, and it basically says the landowner has to abate those unsafe conditions. So it's not a tear down order, because I took a look, but the form, you know, of all NOVs says you have two choices if you have a dilapidated building: satisfy the abate the unsafe parts of it so people don't, get hit by falling debris, or knock it down. So I can tell you, the township is not trying to knock down old barns. I think the construction department wanted to make sure that people weren't going to get injured from it. So just so the public doesn't worry about that. And then the final thing is on you said there were a couple applications that you want notice about. Are these planning board applications?
They will be planning board applications, but it's what happens when something comes up, whether it's UAV or when there was going to be paintball or anything, everybody gets upset, and why didn't I know? Why wasn't I told this, that, and the other? If we have a central location and a process that lets the village people, pardon my pun, and historic and others make them aware of what's coming. I shared last night with the village committee about 579 getting paved and all that. You're doing it again tonight. But if there's a location and people can find things and it makes it easier for our part-time zoning officer and a way that we do things, there's no harm, especially if somebody does it and you decide what you want to do with it or not do with it.
I appreciate the notice is good, and that's why the Township Committee, whenever something comes to our attention that's worthy of discussion or notice, we put it out. You might think about applications that haven't been filed yet, and because I'm not sure the township can announce anything. I'm just saying in general, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the planning board has a notice process for any application that's filed. They have it on the agenda. They release materials, and so. If you're coming up with suggestions about it, just remember that there may be nothing for the township to announce where somebody hasn't decided whether they're filing an application yet. So,
Yeah.
but I appreciate all your comments.
But it's been close to a year now that the 35 Rosemont Ringgoes Road's been dragging on, and that's not on the agenda yet because they've got more stuff to do and things like that.
Well,
So
but that's not
an
on our
interim.
agenda, right? Because remember,
No.
when something as an application is made to one of our boards, like planning board, we have no jurisdiction. In fact, those of us who are on the planning board, we can't comment on that because that's part of a due process proceeding.
Sure.
So, I appreciate your thought that if there are things that we can share, we should, and we're trying to do that. So if you have examples of how to do it.
Will and things like that.
So someone else wanted to make a comment? Please come up. Thanks, Francis.
I do.
Yes.
I really don't need to come forward because I
Well,
talk loud enough.
I know, but remember,
Yes,
folks
of
are
course.
watching, so
Frida Ralph, 1 Leadville Road.
thanks.
I just wanted to respond because, as being a longtime resident and a former zoning board officer and everything, if anything's going within X number of feet of you that pertains to you, you get noticed. I know that from the zoning board. We have the East Amwell Community Bulletin Board, and because I travel a lot and spend a great deal of time in Arizona, I now get notifications, email notifications. That's why I'm here tonight. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't know because I just got back in town yesterday. So anyway, that's
Thank
all.
you. Thank you.
And
Appreciate it.
I just want
Please,
to
Jen.
jump in, and I know Francis says people reach out to you, and if you can just remind them, and Frida too, that we have the news flashes that they can
Yeah.
sign up for to get email, because we have a really great resource. You get the text message, you get the emails, and I know I say it like every meeting, but if we have very few town residents signed up for it, and there's a lot of good info that goes out. So I know people talk to both of you a lot, so just kind of remind them would be great.
I'm not
So
trying
thanks.
to be confrontational.
No, I know,
I'm trying
I know.
to be helpful.
Yeah.
And one of the things with the news flashes are it sends you to the website, and especially as one gets older or feebler, it can be difficult to find what they say is there.
Oh, well, that's helpful to know. So
That's
we can think
helpful
about,
to know.
you have to think about that, how to present it better
Yeah.
for the public, yeah.
There are Luddites amongst us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Rick?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Rick Wolf, 21 Rynearson Road here in East Amwell. I only planned to talk about one thing, but in light of what Laura said, I'll talk about something else first, which is the Route 179 bridge. I was the mayor at the time that came up. I've walked Laura's property several times. She is not in any way, shape, or form exaggerating about the problem. It's a ditch. It's a deep ditch. NJDOT doesn't maintain it. Water backs up. That could get mosquitoes, other things. It's hard for them to maintain it because it has boulders. I mean, big rocks on both sides. It's hard to mow when you have boulders. So as she said, they'll come and spray something from time to time, but she's had to chase them to do that. If I recall correctly, there's a pipe sticking out. It may be a gas pipe sticking out, which to me isn't a good thing. And I think that's happened because of erosion. The ditch just gets deeper from erosion. When NJDOT came to the Township Committee to talk to us about the bridge, because they needed Township Committee approval in order to get their federal funds, they told us that they would take care of this. So the Township Committee approved the project. There were hearings. They focused mainly on dealing with the traffic during the period the bridge was being constructed. It became clear to me after we approved it and we started following up with NJDOT about dealing with Laura's problem, they were just jerking us around. And I'll just digress. NJDOT, during the period I was mayor at least, was jerking us around on a number of things. The parking at the post office, the helistop, they were just incredibly difficult to deal with. So in any event, it got to the point where they were just blowing us off, where the Township Committee withdrew the approval that we gave. I believe I followed that up with a letter or an email, and I can go back and look at my files and see what correspondence that I have between the Township Committee and NJDOT, and I can share that with you. I'll send it to you, Dante, and you can do with it what you would like. But right now, they don't have our consent. It's been withdrawn, and unless things have changed, they need your consent to get their federal funds. I would not give that consent until you have a plan in front of you that you're happy with. I would not take their word, gee, if you give the consent, we'll work this out. They have no credibility with me whatsoever. So, and Laura's not exaggerating the problems. I've walked it multiple times. And I do think it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to go out and take a look at it. You don't necessarily have to get down in the ditch, but you will see she's not exaggerating. Now on to something a little bit, I guess, happier and sadder. I saw on the agenda that Marianne Busher is retiring. And for those who don't know, Marianne Busher was the tax assessor for East Amwell for many years. I first met Marianne Busher literally a few days after I bought my farm. I bought it in July, and at closing was handed a stack of papers and was told, you have to fill these out in order to get your farmland assessment. And oh, by the way, you have to have them done by the end of July, and they have to be right. I had no idea what to do with these papers. I did the best I could, and then I made an appointment with Mary Ann to help me. She was incredibly patient, incredibly helpful, very nice. That was my first interaction with her. Then when I got on the Township Committee, for years I was actually her liaison, so I worked pretty extensively with her on a host of issues having to do with tax assessment. And she simply reinforced the impression that I originally had of her. I mean, she was so dedicated that if it was getting close to the August 1st deadline to file your farmland assessment forms, and there were farmers who had not yet filed the forms, she would make sure that they got a call reminding them, hey, you have a week left, we don't have your forms. That's how dedicated she was. She was never a gotcha. She was incredibly patient with people. Even at times when people were being unreasonable, she was incredibly patient. She was just a wonderful tax assessor. Her breadth of knowledge was incredible. When the UAW was looking to do its pilot program and I reached out to her to ask her what she knew about other municipalities, within a few weeks she had me models from other municipalities for pilot programs that they did. I just can't say enough nice things about her. It's going to be a real loss to the municipality, her retirement. I'm really happy that you're all doing a proclamation. She was absolutely terrific, and I am going to reach out to her personally, but I just want to say publicly that I wish her well in retirement, and am very thankful for the time that I spent with her when I was on the Township Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. And members of the public should know that with regard to the bridge, that is the position that the Township Committee is taking, which is we want to make sure that we know exactly what the proposal is from the DOT before we sign off on it, because we want to make sure that our residents are protected. Other members of the public, anyone else would like to speak at this time? Okay, seeing none, without objection, we're closed to the public. Item 7, approval of minutes, we're carrying to the next meeting. And our segue here on the proclamation is I want to read the proclamation for retirement of our tax assessor, Mary Ann Busher. And let me say, I had personal interactions with her over the years, and I agree she really is a terrific public employee, very dedicated, very knowledgeable, and we've appreciated her service over these many years. Wish her well in retirement. Whereas Mary Ann Busher, certified tax assessor, will retire after more than 19 years of outstanding and meritorious service to the Township of East Amwell. And whereas Mary Ann received a Bachelor of Science degree from Rutgers State University in January 1990. Whereas in 1993, she began her municipal career as a field assessor in Branchburg Township. Whereas she became a certified tax assessor with the state of New Jersey, Department of Treasury, Division of Taxation in January 1995. Whereas Mary Ann began her career with the Township of East Amwell in January of 2005, as well as serving as tax assessor for the borough of Highbridge, Clinton Township, Plainsboro Township, and Raritan Township over various periods. Whereas, as a result of continued diligent work and demonstrated ability, Mary Ann was appointed to a full 4-year term as East Amwell Township tax assessor in July of 2005 and was tenured as of July 2009. Whereas throughout her many years of service, Mary Ann has served the residents of this township with fairness, respect, and dedication. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Mayor and Township Committee of the Township of East Amwell do hereby extend to Mary Ann Busher, certified tax assessor, our sincere and grateful appreciation for her dedicated service to the township and our congratulations on her well-earned retirement. We also give our best wishes for her continued success, happiness, and good health in the years to come. Proclaim this day 9th of May 2024, so we'll get the original to her. Okay, item 9 on the agenda, Ordinance number 24-05, second reading, public hearing, stormwater management. Linda, would you read by title, please?
An ordinance of the Township of East Amwell, County of Hunterdon, State of New Jersey, amending and supplementing certain sections of Chapter 122 of the Code of the Township of East Amwell entitled Stormwater Management.
Okay, this ordinance is a NJDEP requirement. Its purpose is to establish minimum stormwater management requirements and controls for what's called major development, which is a defined term. Does anyone have any comments on this before we take this up? No. All right. No? All right, seeing none, may I have a motion?
So moved.
I can second that.
Second.
We forget to open to the public.
Open the public first? Excuse me. Open the public. Anyone have a comment first? Okay, hearing none. I will close the public, but thank you for making sure that we did that. Okay, we have a motion and a second. No discussion. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? None? Abstention, none? Go ahead, Linda.
Ms. Casper Bloom,
Yes.
Mr. Nardi,
Yes.
Mr. Dendis,
Yes.
Mayor DePiero.
Yes. Okay, ordinance 24-06, second reading, public hearing, budget limits. Please, Linda, read by title.
An ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank, NJSA 40A:4-45.14.
All right, thank you. This ordinance is an annual budgetary item that allows the municipality to exceed the appropriation limits if the need would arise. Okay, we're open to the public for comment. Okay, seeing no members of the public comment, we're closed to the public without exception. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? Abstention, none? Linda?
Ms. Casper Bloom,
Yes.
Mr. Nardi,
Yes.
Mr. Dendis,
Yes.
Mayor DePiero.
Yes. Okay, item 11 on the agenda, ordinance 24-07, first reading introduction of the zoning ordinance. Linda, if you'd read by title, please.
An ordinance of the Township of East Amwell, County of Hunterdon, State of New Jersey, amending and supplementing certain sections of Chapter 24, Article 5 of the Code of the Township of East Amwell entitled Zoning Officer and Alternate Zoning Officer.
Okay, as you all know, the zoning department functions are now back in East Amwell. That being this case, this ordinance intends to ensure that our zoning ordinance is up to date concerning the duties, authority, and protection to the public. The motion today would be to introduce this with a public hearing, date of June 13th, 2024. May I have a motion to introduce the ordinance?
I'll make the motion, but I just had a couple
Sure.
questions about it, and maybe I'll have to go back to Frank on. I would just like it clearer, with the issue with the fining. I would just like to make that clearer that, our residents know that it's not like us issuing a fine. It would go in front of a judge, and there would be a hearing and everything like that, and stuff, not that we're just gonna randomly issue fines if consent isn't given to enter the property. So I think we just need to clear that up a little bit, because that's my understanding, right? It's not the judge make the final call on the fines, yeah.
I think that's right, and so the members of the public understand the issue. The procedures laid out are that if a right of entry is sought by the zoning officer will approach the landowner and request consent, because we feel that's the best procedure, and frankly, that's a good procedure for the Fourth Amendment rights of our residents. And if consent is not given to the zoning officer, and the zoning officer needs to perform her functions, she has the ability to go to court to seek an order of entry. She also can seek penalties, and it's a discretionary thing that could be used in the event that there's some inappropriate conduct in preventing access. A zoning officer may get an application, a zoning application, and might be hindered from being able to inspect the very premises that she needs to do in order to deal with that permit application. So one of the things that the officer can do is to is to go into court with the right showing that there's grounds to be able to enter. Judge signs off on it. The judge could also find an appropriate circumstance. So Jen's point's well taken that, we're not looking to fine people. We just want to make sure the zoning officer has the authority she needs in the appropriate circumstance.
So if I can add to, I too have some discomfort with this. I did speak to Frank today on the phone. Is there a way we can, that language, like we talked about this briefly, the next step is to seek entry will be to impose a fine if entry is not granted. Is there a way we can reword that language somehow?
Well, what I was just saying with Jenna is that, so the way it would probably happen is zoning official needs entry. She would ask the landowner for consent. If the landowner consents, she would perform her duties. If she can't,
Right.
we don't allow our officials to just go into someone's property,
Of course.
even if the person has authority. We want to make sure that there's due process. And in that case, our zoning officer would have to go to court. When in court, the zoning officer could seek two remedies. One would be an order
Right.
allowing her to go in so she can return with the trooper or something and perform her duties. But another thing, in an egregious case, she might seek to have, a sanction imposed. And if you think about it, the zoning officer needs to perform her duties, and if folks are not giving access and they're unreasonable, and we don't want the township residents incurring costs to have to go into court each time when it's clear that the landowner, would reasonably be allowing access. So again, it's not something that has to happen, but in order to make sure that our zoning official has authorities, it's something that could be sought in an appropriate case. And I'll point out that with regard to an analogy of construction department officials, construction department officials is a matter of state law because they enforce state law. If they're not able to get access, state law allows them to have fines for wrongful denial of access, and that's to make sure that the construction department officials are able to get access when it's reasonable. So, we think what's going to happen is in most cases, landowners will say, yeah, we have no problem giving consent because the zoning officer is performing duties. But if you have a situation where they're not being allowed, or she's not being allowed to perform her duties, we need to make sure that with the judge's sign-off, our official can perform her duties in a way that meets the Fourth Amendment protections of the landowner.
So I agree with everything you said, and I'm one of the few that's not a lawyer on this table. It just reads to me, we're going to ask for consent, and then, by the way, if you don't give us consent, we have the right to fine you, and go to court and get a court order to come in.
Yeah, and/or.
And
So
or.
right now, we can look at language, but the
That's
and.
all I'm asking for, look
Yeah.
at language. I'm not saying there shouldn't be a penalty, but the steps, if I was the receiving end of that, if you knocked on my door and said, can I come in to check for an illegal bathroom in the basement? Here's our ordinance that gives me permission to do this, and by the way, if you don't let me in now, I can fine you $200 a day or $250 a day, and or go to court to seek permission from a judge to get in the house. I'm just uncomfortable with that.
Because,
Because it's no longer free consent. I'm no longer giving you free consent because I have a penalty imposed in front of me if I don't give you consent.
I think, Mike, your concerns are well taken, but these, as Dante points out, these are tools we're adding to the toolbox of our zoning officer to use in extreme circumstances. And this is not this is not something that is going to happen automatically. It's something that I'm probably going to be involved in. I'm probably going to get a call. There's probably going to be some deliberation. And I think the fining aspect of it is something that in an extreme situation where we don't have cooperation and we need some coercive authority, that's something that we can use when we go before a judge. If we have somebody that's has an obvious violation and is not being cooperative with our zoning official. And it's something that, when you read it, I understand how you're reading it. It's almost like this is in every case, there's gonna be a fine, then there's gonna be a.
Well, let's put
a,
it in the language that I understand, and you can walk me through this. Pull your car over, say, can I search your trunk? No, officer, you can't search my trunk. Okay, by the way, I have the right to fine you $250 a day until you let me in your trunk, or I can go to court and get a search warrant. How am I reading that wrong?
Well, that's in a
Don't you
criminal.
go to court to get the penalty in the first
Yeah,
place?
yeah.
In other words, the zoning officer is, I'm sorry to speak out.
No, I want to hear it because I want to get comfortable with it. I think we're all trying to accomplish the same thing, but
I don't think that's the case. I think the fine is something that would be imposed when you get to the court situation. I know that there's not gonna be a fine handed to the property owner right there, and maybe we do need to look at the wording, and we can certainly, change that between now and the final.
but if you read that
adoption.
in that plain text, the way I'm putting it,
It says and/or, which means you're not required to do either, right? You could do one or the other. That's the discretion that the enforcing official has. Maybe Tammy,
Tammy?
did you want to speak to this since, you don't have to, but if you want to, here's our new
Yeah,
zoning
come on up.
officer here. You don't have to, but I see that you're here. Please go up to the mic.
Hey, Tammy.
Hi.
oh,
So Tammy Shimoni, our zoning official. Please go.
So the part of the ordinance that you're talking about with the right of entry into the home for the $250 fine,
right?
zoning doesn't have any jurisdiction inside of a house. The zoning officer has no reason to enter into a home
Okay.
because zoning doesn't control the inside of the house. We only control what's outside.
Okay.
So there was a case, I believe it was Camara versus San Francisco, where they said that there is no Fourth Amendment violation as long as there's no expectation of privacy. Which means a zoning officer, when they go onto the property, anything outside your home is not considered private because it's in plain view. So as far as the $250 fine if I don't get into your home, I would never go into someone's home. It's all zoning is strictly is outside the home. Anything inside the home is strictly a construction official issue, not a zoning
It's
issue.
only plain view if I let you in my backyard. That's the problem.
It's in plain view if I walk past your house.
You can't walk past my house without a court order.
Yes, I can.
So why do you need this ordinance?
The ordinance that, I don't need the $250 court order part of the ordinance. The ordinance that I need is the part that says I can go and knock on your door,
Okay.
okay? If I need to go into your backyard, I can go into and knock on the door and ask, listen, I received a complaint. I'm here to confirm that the violation does or does not exist. There's very few cases, if ever, that you've gone to get a court order to do an inspection on a property. I could simply drive past and take pictures.
Right, but something you can't see from the road or to the front door.
Right.
We got a lot of 50-acre properties here,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a violation in the back 40. You can't get there without the homeowner's permission.
Correct, but you can also use other tools that are acceptable in courts, like
Right.
Google Earth. You can
Agreed.
use drones. You can use other ways of getting to see the violation if needed.
Agree, 100%. So just so we're clear, I'm not trying to support what you want to do. I'm very uncomfortable when we have a consent, and then, by the way, if you don't give me consent, I can fine you. I can't get in line with
Well,
that.
that part of the ordinance was taken from DCA, which is the construction code official, has the ability to fine someone $250. I am not a construction code official. I don't report to the state of New Jersey, where a construction code official is a licensed official through DCA who enforces the UCC code. I don't do that. So if somebody doesn't give me consent, I can't give them a fine because they didn't give me consent. The construction official, they can give a fine because that's different. It could be a health, safety, welfare issue where the construction official needs to enter the premises if they're saying it's an unsafe structure or there's more bedrooms than what was supposed to be. Work done inside the home was done illegally. That's not what we do. We don't do that inside the house. We don't go inside the house.
Understood. So just so we're clear, I want to get you the right permission to do your job. To me, I'm hung up on
So
the way it
if you
reads.
took out the line where I could give you $250 fine without consent, the ordinance itself still would allow me to do the job.
Right, with the consent or a court order.
Right, and so in that, right,
Right.
yeah.
So I'm
we could get
perfectly
an
fine
order.
with that.
Right, so
Right,
what you-
right, but realize, Mike, so if someone unreasonably refuses access, the township residents have to keep paying for her to go to court and spend time doing it just to get an order to get in when it was unreasonable. So if you take away a tool, you may cost the taxpayers money if folks are being completely unreasonable. So, you know, we can talk about it more, but the fine, the ability to fine, you know, is a tool that could be used to make sure we don't just have, ridiculous refusals. And I would imagine, look, I mean, judges are not going to be giving out fines and sanctions unless the conduct's unreasonable. But if we don't have a tool in our ordinance, we can't ask for it in court.
I agree we need a tool in our penalty phase once we've discovered a problem. You guys are the attorneys, Frank. How is it free consent if, by the way, you don't let me in, I can give you a fine? I don't know how that's free consent.
Well, the mere fact that there's a cost to you being unreasonable doesn't mean that you haven't, that your consent is invalid. You know, so for example, if a judge finds that the person unreasonably refused, how do you have a problem that they could be fined for that? Because if the judge has found it's unreasonable, what's the problem?
Because a person doesn't have to be reasonable. They have the Fourth Amendment.
No, you have to reasonably rely on your rights. You can't unreasonably do it, right? If you have a right to the Fourth Amendment, or you have a Second Amendment right, doesn't mean you can shoot somebody, right? So the fact that you have a right doesn't mean that you can use it for any purpose. It has to be reasonable. And look, we can visit it more, but I mean, it's just a
We
matter.
all want to get to the same place. I'm just sharing what I'm uncomfortable with.
Oh, I know. I
And
hear you.
using my, may I search your trunk? No, officer. Okay, by the way, I'm going to charge you $250 a day until I get a warrant to go in your trunk. You can't do that.
Right. But
And how is
Tammy's
this not the
zoning,
same?
not a police officer.
But
She's
she's
not
an
an
agent of the
officer.
government. She's an extension of the government. Right?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure about that one. But let me just ask Tammy a question. Like, in your time being a zoning person, how many times has a zoning officer been rejected that you know coming onto a property to take photographs or whatever?
They've never been rejected.
Right.
Because the person,
There's always a one, but
they're right, there's
No.
always one, but.
Look, I
the-
think there should be a
the-
penalty
the goal
once
of the
we
zoning officer is to
legally get in their
compliance.
property.
Well,
Okay,
that's
so
what,
if
but that's
you're
what
gonna
it says. So
complain-
if you're okay with it in terms of timing, there's not going to be a penalty before a judge says that they've been unreasonable. So then it satisfies what you're saying.
Not the way I plainly
But
read
is
it.
it,
It
I
doesn't.
think, I mean, isn't the penalty, wouldn't the penalty be that they have the violation then, and then the fines get associated with that penalty versus?
The fines are associated with the violation, not.
Right.
So,
Yes.
does
So-
anybody have it open? Read that sentence, and you'll.
Yeah,
I think
it
folks will
says
hear what
there's-
I'm at.
So I think it needs to be clearer that the fines are associated if there's a violation, not if you don't give consent.
The way I'm reading
I
it, we can
understand that.
fine you because you're not giving me consent.
No, and I agree with
Yes.
how you're reading, I agree that it's not clear in the language and we need to make it better, yes.
I'm okay with a fine for the violation,
Right,
but I'm not okay on the plain read of, and believe me, I've been losing sleep over this for 2 days.
Well, we can work on wording, but remember, like, let's use the analogy of when someone gets a notice of violation for construction code violation, right? The notice says you can be fined. That doesn't mean that you've been fined. It says that that's something that can be obtained once the municipality goes to court. This is the same thing here, right? So nobody's paying money before a judge finds that there should be a fine, right? That's not the issue. And by saying the tools are and/or get an order or get an order and a fine, that's just saying what the tools are. So we can work on the language. If we'll just make clear. I think
You have the plain
Jenna's
text
point was that we make clear that fine gets imposed by the judge when he or she does the order. Then that's fine.
So maybe because I'm not making myself clear, I tried to read this applying all this context. Why is your print so small?
because I'm younger.
All right. Not much. All right. So we have it's 10 years. We have the right of entry. All this is doing is giving your lawyer friends work. If somebody pushes this, I'm trying to help you out. procedures for exercising the right of entry. All right, so this is after the zoning official or their agent asks for consent, and goes through a series of processes. Then we jump right to zoning official and their agents shall first ask landowner or tenant for consent to enter. Jenna, this is too small. If landowner and tenant refuse to give consent, the zoning official may, underneath letter I, issue a fine of no more than $250 a day, and or, double I, go to court and seek an order to enter. I'm not against penalizing somebody for the violation. The way this reads to me, if I'm the homeowner, and she comes to my house and she reads the ordinance to me, and says, look, I'd like to come in and look, or whatever, I'd like to go in your back 40 acres and look for this structure near a stream, to make up an example. And I say, no, ma'am, you're not going on my property. She says, okay, well, according to the ordinance, unless you let me, I can now start to fine you $250 a day and or go to court to get an order of entry.
Right.
How am I now?
So what you're missing is, so that's exactly like the construction official who goes out, sees an unsafe structure, and gives a notice of violation saying, you have to abate this, and if you don't, you pay a fine, and has ability to go to court. It's the same thing, right?
So I agree with that,
Mhm.
but the way I'm reading this, and maybe this is from 30 years doing what I do, you no longer have free consent, because I'm no longer, now I'm threatened with a $250 a day fine if I don't give you consent. It's a lot quicker to let you in knowing I don't have a structure on my backyard that's going to be in violation, so you don't have to seek a court order. But I want to be difficult. I want to say, look, you're not coming on, and now it's 30 days. Now I got $7,000 in fines. That's where I'm coming
Yeah,
from.
No, I heard you.
I understand what you're saying too, but I would think that the zoning officer would go to the property and not like lay that, hey, if you don't let me look at your structures, you can possibly be fined.
So
She
as
might
a-
leave and then get the,
That
the
might be
courts.
Tammy, but the next guy, right?
Well, and
It
look,
might be, but
yeah, but whoever
we
we
can
have,
rephrase the
whoever
word.
we have as zoning officer has to answer to us, right? And if they're using their discretion in a way that's punitive or improper, we'll send the message that you don't do that. But if you don't give folks authority to use a tool, they can't use the tool. So I would say, look, we understand what the issue is, so let's think about language, because
And make your font bigger, please.
so we'll
You just don't know how to use an iPad.
I do too.
You do not.
In Mike's example, I go to court. I'm the homeowner. The zoning officer.
you want to come up close, Rick, so people can hear?
So I don't mean to interrupt, but I think you guys might be talking past each other.
We probably are. That's what I'm waiting for somebody to put it all together.
If I'm the homeowner, zoning officer, and by the way, it's nice to meet you,
Nice meeting you.
shows up at my door and says, Rick, I think you have an illegal swimming pool in the backyard. You didn't come in and get appropriate approvals. I would
Right.
like to go back and see, because I can't see from the road. And I say no. And she fines me $250 a day. And I go into court, and I demonstrate to the court that I don't have a swimming pool in my backyard. The judge is gonna cancel that fine, correct?
Correct.
I believe so.
Right. So I think you're talking past each other. In other words, if I don't have a pool in my backyard, and I tell her, go scratch, you're not coming on my property, and she fines me, fine, I'll just go into court and say, Your Honor, I don't have a pool, here's the proof. I don't
But,
have a
all
pool in the
right,
backyard,
so-
and the fine goes away.
I'm following your example, but now you say to her as a homeowner, well, you're not coming on my property, but what can you do to me if I don't let you on my property? She says, I can fine you up to $250 a day. You say, I don't have $250, therefore you're likely to give consent, which is giving up your Fourth Amendment right without
Well,
a
then
court
all she
order.
could say is, look, I'm gonna fine you $250 a day, and if you can go into court and challenge this if you'd like, and demonstrate that you don't have the illegal swimming pool.
But then how are you giving free on-course consent if you're facing a $250 fine a day?
Because the
That's the
fact
same
that,
thing when I want to search your trunk. I
How
can't
am I
say, by the
giving free
way.
consent if you go to a judge and get a search warrant to search my house, and you come in and search my house? There are times where I don't have free
Because you gave up
consent.
your right of consent because we got a warrant now to do that.
no,
Right, but all I'm saying is, I'm not subject to the $250. If the judge says I'm not subject to the $250, I can go into
There's
court and
a
say,
due
Your Honor, I
process
don't.
element of it to
Right.
protect the property owner.
But if I have an illegal swimming pool in my backyard, and I won't let the zoning officer come in and confirm that, Why am I sympathetic to you? You seem to be saying that I'm sympathetic. I understand that I have property rights, that you don't have the right to just come onto my property. But if I have an illegal swimming pool in my backyard and the zoning officer chooses to fine me $250 a day, why am I sympathetic? Why should I be able to say, no, you can't come in? I'm trying to hide from her the fact that I have an illegal swimming pool. Why am I sympathetic?
So I'm taking out all the emotion and I'm looking at the person's rights. I'm not, whether I'm
The person
sympathetic
could go and
or,
look,
or satisfied.
If the person doesn't have the illegal swimming pool, the person goes into court and says, Your Honor, I didn't have any illegal swimming pool. And the judge throws out, says, there's no fine.
But how about the homeowner that knows they can't afford the $250 a day and doesn't want to let you
Then
on
the
the
judge
property?
isn't gonna
What
impose a
can
fine.
I say about
You know
that,
what I mean?
Mike? What can I say? Then the homeowner should just let them come in and see there's no, they're not letting them come into their home.
Okay.
She's asking to walk around the backyard to see whether there's a swimming pool. I just don't see how that's violating the homeowner's rights. She could fly a drone over.
She could.
So how is this violating the rights? She could fly a drone over to confirm that there's a swimming pool.
So I suspect we can argue my side and the lawyer's side the rest of the night. I think we could turn the
But
page.
I'm not even arguing as a lawyer. I'm trying to argue what I think is right here. And if I put an illegal swimming pool in and I start throwing up roadblocks to prevent the zoning officer from finding out that I put in an illegal swimming pool, why am I sympathetic?
I'm not looking at the sympathy. I'm just suggesting that the way we have it written now, which I think we all agree we can work on that, is it's no longer free consent if you're faced with a fine for not giving that consent.
Right, but our freedoms aren't unlimited. It's like our First Amendment right of free speech. It's not unlimited. I can't go into a theater and yell fire.
We have to have some coercive ability to enforce the zoning laws against people that aren't gonna cooperate.
Right.
That's the bottom line.
Right, and not just to be on the defensive every time and have to just go in and prove our case, but I appreciate you raising the issue, and we'll adjust language, because I think we have enough commonality in terms of what we'd like to get to in terms of having authority and balancing that with the Fourth Amendment rights of folks. So we had before we had the second, we had a discussion, so let me ask do we have a second for the motion? To
Make a
just
motion.
introduce tonight?
Jen.
So
I'll second it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jen had made a motion to introduce tonight, so Al has a second.
Yes.
All in favor of introducing tonight? Say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Me.
One. Abstention, none. Okay, so we'll introduce and we'll work on language for the next meeting. All right, so we're up to 12. Okay, 2024 municipal budget, public hearing adoption. Linda, would you please read by title?
Municipal budget of the Township of East Amwell, County of Hunterdon, State of New Jersey for the year 2024.
Okay, we're now open for any comment from the public. All right, going once, going twice. All right, seeing no one to speak on that, without objection, we're closed to the public. Is there anything you wanted to say? You don't need to, but you were just here to answer questions if. Okay, well, I appreciate you coming today so that you could answer questions if folks had it. And questions from any of the township committee members?
No.
Mike,
No,
any questions from
I'm
you?
done with the budget.
Okay, anyone would like to make a motion to adopt the resolution?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? None, abstention, none. Linda?
Ms. Casper Bloom?
Yes.
Mr. Nardi?
Yes.
Mr. Dendis?
Yes.
Mayor DePiero?
Yes. Okay, consent agenda. Maybe before we do this, I'll just make a few comments. So our tax assessor is retiring, and we need to fill that position, and also an assistant to the tax assessor. And I think, Al, were you the one who was part of interviewing?
Yeah, Jen and I interviewed
Okay.
a couple of candidates, and we vetted them, and we made our decision.
Okay. Excellent. Jen, anything else you want to mention on that?
No. No, I think he's gonna do,
Sorry.
I mean, it's hard, very, very hard shoes to fill, but
Yeah.
he's very, eager, he's knowledgeable, and he was really eager and wanted to
Mhm.
do it, so I think it's gonna be a good fit.
Excellent. I just wanted to give that kind of introduction to anybody listening so they know. Okay, so on the consent agenda, may I have a motion to approve resolutions 2024-63 through 2024-68?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Yep, second, Al. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Abstention, none. Linda?
Ms. Counselor Bloom?
Yes.
Mr. Nardi?
Yes.
Mr. Dendis?
Yes.
Mayor DePiero?
Yes. Okay, we had held the resolution 2024-69, update of personnel policy and procedures manual, off of the consent agenda in case we had any discussion items. Do any of the township committee members have any discussion items on that before we address that?
So a few, I mean,
Please.
this is personnel manual's been out there a little while, we're working through it and changing some language.
And,
Just a-
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Because we have to review it,
No, no,
right?
right.
No, but I mean, every 10 years, isn't it 10 years?
3 years.
3 years.
Three.
Oh, 3, oh, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, so you finish your thoughts so folks know.
Yeah, it's not like we were just randomly looking at the personnel manual. We have to review it every 3 years, and our insurance needs it and everything like that. So that's why we're looking at it, cleaning it up and stuff.
Right, so our
Sorry about
joint
that.
insurance
that's
fund requires us to review and update the manual every 3 years. So as part of that process, we did a review, and I can say before Mike has his comments, that there are a number of things we had to do to update to where we are currently. For example, there were many references to a township administrator, to a township office manager, other terms. So, to deal with that one by way of example, we had or language so that if we have a township administrator, that person has authority. If we don't, it goes down the line to a mayoral delegee or something, or liaison. So things like that we had to address. So that's the preamble. Mike, please.
So I think that's exactly why, what's been taking some time with it, and I think some of what I'm, gonna bring up is probably maybe just like oversight that it may have got missed, or maybe suggestions thrown out there. There was, I think it's called the red line copy, I think I was looking at. It looked like there was a change to personnel time. Was that a suggestion? Or I should say, personal days off. They kinda got like,
So maybe Al, if you'll
Yeah.
speak to that. So
depending on when you got hired.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is that something
Just
we-
a suggestion of mine is, I think any new hires before June 30th should get 1 day. If you're hired after June 30th for your first year, it gets prorated to, half a day, quarter a day, whatever. Year 2, you get 2 days. After that, you get 3 personal days, capped,
And what were they getting now? 3 right up front.
Well, one would say 3
3.
as soon as you're hired.
as soon as you're hired.
So
Which is
those
great,
of you
but-
that know me well, I'm not a fan of taking anything away from our employees.
Yeah.
I just,
Yeah.
I
I'm
can't.
not looking to take away anything. I'm looking for new hires and just doing it. Again,
Right.
my opinion is,
Well, that's
1 day for the first year and 2 and then 3. But I'm just one person.
There was, comparing the 2 copies, there was some comp or personal time given to the clerk for like non-scheduled executive sessions. Is that a typo, or is that something we'll discuss?
I think that was meant to clarify because I think it was confusing as for what was in it before. So we'd have to pull the provision out, but I think there was something in there that made it confusing, that like if we had an executive session at 6:30 and then we had a regular meeting at 7 p.m., there was like double compensation or something,
Right.
rather than have it considered as the meeting for the, so I think this was designed to deal with that. So if we have a meeting on Thursday and then we have another meeting Wednesday of the next week, or an executive session, obviously there should be compensation.
Okay.
But if there are 2 things back to back, that's really not what it's
That
intended
makes
to be.
sense. I mean, yeah, so whether the township meetings starts at 6:30 for executive or 7, I think that's probably what the confusion was. So if we schedule an alternate day executive emergency, she would,
Yeah, of
she
course,
or,
needs
he
to
or
be
she would get,
compensated.
compensated.
Yep.
And then there was just like all like minor typo stuff that I think that
If
we
there
don't
are,
have to
let
address.
us know, and we, right, so I would
So
say.
my biggest concern I noticed in the red line comparing it, besides all the well-needed corrections to township administrator, I think that was the right way to fix it. I just concerned about the personal days. If we're usually given 3 up front, I'd be comfortable if we can keep it at that because it's a competitive job market.
Well, so we can talk about this and decide. I mean, I think the idea is that for new folks going forward, so if you hire somebody late in the year, for example, they wouldn't get,
It should be
they wouldn't get
prorated.
3,
Yeah,
right?
some should be prorated.
I mean, you could just do that from the beginning and have them prorated,
That's true.
right?
I'll
I
do
mean, it's
Yeah.
the same kind of thing, but Al went a step further, which is he was recommending stepping it up from 1 year, 2, and 3 years.
Correct.
Rather than just
Right
the
off the
first
bat.
year. So, because if you got hired, I don't know, December 25th, and you got prorated, and then you got 3, his feeling was that was too quick. But again, it's for whatever folks think. So
Don't forget, you're also on probation for 6 months.
So what if you get hired in the first
6 months.
quarter, or you do the first quarter, you'd get your 3 personal days. If you got in the second quarter, you'd get 2, and if the final quarter, you'd get 1. Does that work for a prorate?
Well, only the fact that there's quarters of 4 and the days
Oh,
are
yeah,
3.
sorry.
Well,
So
if you wanna say
thirds,
the
I have
third, if you want to say
take
third.
back being younger. So
Um,
the first third of the
Look,
month.
you guys know I'm very sensitive.
Yeah.
If it like, I don't want to mess with their stuff. That's all.
But what if we did it
but to
that
be
way?
clear, we're not taking away from anybody, right?
But
This
it'll be
is-
for a new hire. But I like
Yeah.
the idea that
So when
if
you
we just
hire-
have that one little thing that if somebody's comparing East Amwell to say a Lambertville job, but let's say East Amwell can give me 3 days.
Well, are you aware that other municipalities give all of their time right up front to new hires?
That's going to be town to town.
Well, that's what I'm saying, so I don't know that it's not like we're an outlier and everybody else is
Probably not an
something different.
outlier. Well, probably not an
But
outlier.
I mean, I'm open to whatever way to phrase it in, I mean,
The second vacation's prorated, right?
yeah.
I just didn't notice any of that. What I noticed when you compare the red line copies, compared to the old one. I'm comfortable with if you get hired the first 6 months, you get a day and a half, and then the second 6 months you get a day and a half, I guess, and then the second year you get all 3. Is what I'd like. But so that
I
time.
don't like my thirds.
Well, you had quarters. I don't know
I
how.
did.
Up for discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
like-
if we
my
want to
opinion,
minor-
but
so if
we
we
can
want,
discuss it.
if we want to adopt, we need to make a decision on that now, right? So I would say,
I'm okay with doing 1.5 in the first.
And then the
half,
following
then-
year they get the 3. So the following year they were getting 2 anyway, underneath Al's suggestion. This way we're just giving them the 3 up front, the second year, right?
Yeah, because I get the point of if you get hired December 25th,
Yeah,
take
I
3
mean-
personal. Yeah.
We're not and
I mean, actually, in that regard, 1.5 is a lot
Yeah.
for working a week.
Yeah.
So you may be better prorating it, actually, like Jenna said, and just say, maybe that's the better way. So you'd say, it's 3 days, but if you start in your first year, it's prorated. And then it's, so if you're
Yeah,
there
that-
for 40%, you get 40%. If you're there, 80% of it, you get 80%.
That's true, too.
I mean, so maybe that's a cleaner
I
way
could
of.
I could live with that. I'm happy with that. The first year is a little bit messy, but the second year you get your 3 days, and we move on from there. I just and the rest of the stuff like the
Hang on,
go
sorry,
ahead.
before you go on, I'm trying to get consensus if we have it. Al, are you
That's
okay with
fine,
that?
yeah.
Okay, sorry, Mike, go ahead, Mike.
I lost my train of thought.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The minor typo stuff, which just looks like,
Well,
somebody typed that when it goes to the printer, for lack of better wording,
Yeah.
we could clean that up.
No, on that, I think.
Is Linda the printer, by the way?
No, I think the motion would be to, adopt with that change on the proration of the personnel for the first year. And then, obviously, if anybody has typos, please share those with Linda, and we'll get a clean copy.
Yeah, and the
I mean, it's
copy
a
we're
huge- it's
working
a
with
huge
is increasing the sick time. I think we're all on board with that. The
Uh,
copy
yeah,
that I saw, we're increasing the sick time.
Yeah. So.
Yeah,
and
so
that's
Mike,
kind
we
of-
were giving more there, okay, just for the record.
Yeah.
I know.
Okay.
5 more sick days,
Okay.
yeah.
I know. I'm happy about that.
Well, that puts us on par with other towns too, right?
It's
right.
yes.
Yeah.
Well,
That-
some
I
of the
think it-
research that we
yes.
were detailed to do 6 months ago, yeah, that 5 days was low, very low compared to most towns.
Yeah, and I think this is more than some towns, so I think
Good, yeah.
you're right that
It's
we're
a
increasing this.
reasonable amount of sick time, for sure. It's a livable amount.
Okay, and, all right, so, I think hearing the discussion, may I have a motion to approve with the provisos that will, on the personal days, portions of the first year would be prorated, against 3 years, would be 3 years after that, and a proviso that will correct any typos before releasing the final version. Do you have anyone moving to make a
No,
motion?
I'll make a motion.
Al?
That's fine.
And thank you, by the way, for all the work you did on this.
Yeah.
It is probably the most thankless thing you probably had to do as mayor. I don't know how many hours you spent on it. Quite a bit, I'm sure, and it's a lot of work, but I think that, we have a document that, that we'll have to talk about in another year and a half for some people.
Well, I think at least it cleans it up to make it consistent, and I think improves employee benefits in some cases, so
Yeah.
hopefully it's good.
Okay.
Any other comment before vote? Al, Jenna, Mike? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Who seconded?
Jenna. Opposed? None. Abstention? None. Do you want to take a roll call?
Ms. Casper Bloom?
Yes.
Mr. Nardi?
Yes.
Mr. Dendis?
Yes.
Mayor DePiero?
Yes. All right, well, thanks everyone for your attention to this. It is a very long document, and I think a lot of it was just stale from our changes that hadn't been updated, so hopefully this will help everybody. Item 15 on the agenda, special discussions. Just 3 quick notes on the Kleinschmidt House. Mike, would you like to give a quick status on that, because we're making progress?
Jason's in the process now of talking to contractors. There was some language and some legal stuff that had to get cleared up with expectations and whether there's hazmat stuff. I think Frank worked a little bit with the process.
Yep.
A couple of people called me on this that are connected to the cemetery, and they asked some questions about, is this a bid process? Is, where the money is and things like that. And my understanding from talking to Jason, and Frank could clear this up if I get it wrong, because the estimates are under a certain dollar amount, East Amwell doesn't have to go out to bid. I'm told that dollar amount's like $44,000, and the estimates that we're working with are under $44,000.
If they're under
that
the,
accurate?
If they're under the bid threshold, then we should be able to go with them.
Yeah, he's accepting. He's
But nonetheless, we're asking
Yes.
a number of contractors.
there's many
to provide
contractors
them.
that want to talk about
Right.
it and give an estimates, because the gentleman asked if it was like a sealed bid process, and I said
No.
it's not, because it's under a certain dollar amount. So it is harder to get some contractors that want the project because of everybody has environmental concerns, but we're confident that legally we're in pretty good shape. And the one gentleman from that's the chair of the cemetery, he shared with me that there used to be an above ground oil tank that he hasn't seen in 50 years almost, if I got that right. It's no longer there, so wherever that happened to that a long time ago.
Which is a good thing for us, because
Probably a good thing for us.
just to remind everybody, so our intent is we're not taking ownership, we're not taking environmental liability on this, and we're having a scope for our, whatever contractor does this, of merely knocking down that structure over the ground and removing that. And just leaving the ground in a way that's not going to be an attractive nuisance or a public safety issue to folks. So we're not dealing with environmental issues, staying away from that, but we are abating a nuisance, and our hope is for the first time in 100 years we'll have an improved property that our residents can be proud of and not have safety issues. So
it sounds like from the history, because you mentioned 100 years, the history of the area he believes that the house hasn't been used since the 1920s.
Wow.
And it was used for only Sunday school connected to the church. After that, it got sold or willed down to somebody that he believes lived in next town over, who used to come around, and I want to say he told me up to like the 1970s, he used to come around and maybe like putter around, do some work on it, but nobody's from the best that, or local legend would tell you is nobody's lived in there in over 100 years. And, I mean, I've been around here over 30 years, and it's looked like that for 30 years, so.
I've only been here 20, so.
So you're not that much younger than me, so you're catching up. You're catching up. When I was 10, you were 0, now look how close we are.
All right, so
So that's what I know on that. So hopefully we'll have something, I don't want to give a time, but it's actively being pursued, and, whenever we can get things scheduled and get the right contract, we're looking to move forward.
Right, so I think that's the takeaway, which is we've engineered this to get to the point where we get a couple responsible contractors to give us prices, confirm the scope. Would like to get this done so that we can finally deal with this. So Mike, thanks for your work on that, and Frank, thank you as well for dealing with those legal issues. A second item for special discussions, we really covered already, the bridge replacement, Route 129. So the takeaway is I'll be talking with DOT to make sure that they address in an appropriate way the concerns that are out on those property. And then I'll report back to the Township Committee and invite Laura Olson back on that. We want to make sure that she's satisfied that we're getting good service from NJDOT before they proceed with the project. And finally, this is just an informational note. Local finance notice, the Russia Belarus certification. There's a new process imposed by the Department of Community Affairs because of the Belarus conflict. And so as a result of that process, we're following some mandated forms. It's mostly just for folks who want to keep track. We're meeting our obligations in that regard. New business, we have none unless somebody wants to raise something at this time. Okay, we've got no standing reports.
Yeah, if I
yes,
can,
please.
under the standing, the rescue squad President Ethan, he sent me a message. He was unable to make it tonight, but he asked me to pass along. Let me open the text. Hold on. See, I have the right font here, Jenna. They were able to hold their 36 hours of commitment for the month. He wanted me to pass along that there's a Mother's Day flower sale located at the firehouse starting Saturday at 9 a.m. The rescue squad answered 13 calls in the month, and they handled 1 mutual aid for Flemington and 1 mutual aid for Lambertville. So that's where we stand with that. There is another meeting coming up amongst the principals of the rescue squads, our partners, on the 15th of May. I think you're invited to that. I think Bev was originally going to attend that, but I believe you got invited, so we have to
Yes.
make sure that she knows that you're replacing her.
Or she's welcome to come as well. I mean, that's fine.
But then that's 3 of us in the same room. Can we do that?
Yeah.
Okay. Then she's welcome to come.
I mean, either way, but I want to, not include her. She's been party to it before.
She was going to join the party.
Okay, well, we'll work that out. I mean, I think
Okay.
it's important for us to have a meeting with all of the squads. I know our local squad has been trying to get up and running because they're still having some problems with the staffing, and they're only able to cover from Friday through Sunday, and financial issues are out there. So we do want to meet with all the squads because we've got as a bottom line make sure that our residents have emergency services. We can't afford to have people have an emergency and not be able to get service. So Mike, I thank you for all your work on this. And
So those who have been following, by the way, closely over the last at least 6 months when we've been openly talking about this. This is a meeting that we had asked all the squads that are involved to come back with a workable and viable plan. So we're hoping on the 15th we hear from Flemington on what their plan would be to cover East Amwell. We'll hear from Lambertville what their plan will be, and we'll hear what Amwell Valley, where they're at with the status of their organization. We're of course going to share as much as we can as soon as we can, and you guys are welcome. I think you could call the squad and talk to them directly too. I think if they're available, they'll take your call. But I think it's important that we have a plan in place for long-term viability for service in East Amwell, and our partners that are covering us now are looking for that and have been looking for that for years. And the end of the rope is we're kind of getting there where decisions are going to have to be made, and that's just the reality of it. So we're gonna have those hard conversations and see what that looks like for everybody sometime next month.
Okay, well, thanks for that, and thanks for providing an update. I mean, I see Mike's here. Mike, did you have anything to add, or we just?
Nothing on that front.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I had another
Please.
update too. I don't
Yep.
think it's on the announcements, but it's the community yard sale this weekend. And East Amwell is pairing with Delaware as well. So if you go on the East Amwell website, there's a Google Doc that will list all the houses that are participating from 9 to 3 on Saturday.
That's
So-
this Saturday?
It is, yep.
Okay, great. Anyone else with committee reports or announcements? Okay, great. Thanks, everyone, for that. Approval of the bills. May I have a motion to approve the May 9, 2024 bills of the evening?
So moved.
I'll second that.
So, okay, before we just go right to roll call, Linda?
Sure. Ms. Casper Bloom?
Yes.
Mr. Nardi?
Yes.
Mr. Dendis?
Yes.
Mayor DePiero?
Yes. Item 19, approval of administrative reports. May I have a motion to approve the administrative reports?
So moved.
Okay, second.
I can second that.
All right, thanks, Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? None. Abstention? None. Okay, correspondence, folks have access to that. And we're up to open to the public. So the meeting is now open to the public. Yes, please.
I'll be brief.
That's okay, come on up.
And I'm probably talking to the wrong authorities. The Kleinschmidt house was what brought to mind some concerns that I have that are happening in the township right now. And the first is, of course, the houses that have fallen down and are dilapidated. And there's two that I'm aware of, and they're both on Rocktown Road. The first is if you are going up Rocktown Road past Losey Road and it swings around, there's an old farmhouse and an even more dilapidated barn. I know that a bunch of it on the left was split off and fencing is up, and I haven't driven down that road since last fall. So I'm not sure whether that's being built on, but what's happening to what's left is, I mean, it's obviously gonna be have to be torn down and stuff. And then as you proceed farther down the road is a beautiful house that used to be owned by a broker in Princeton, and it sold last year or the year after to a non-resident who, I don't know where I heard it, maybe from one of my neighbors or something. You know, it's somebody who has no intentions of living there and just wants to, you know, modernize it and whatever, which the planning board needs to see about whether historical houses can be preserved. And that house is gorgeous. The barn part probably needs to be torn down, but you just, it's incredibly beautiful. I was actually in it one time years ago. And also on Rocktown Road, and that's just another thing that's happening in our township, is this was a preserved farm, first by Walter Hill. He was the one who preserved it way back as one of the first preserved farms. After that, Mr. Iriff, who was part owner of Unionville Vineyards, his widow sold that last summer, and I looked up because my neighbor told me that nobody's moving in. And it is owned by Flip It LLC. So we know what's happening there. And of course, there's this house that's also beautiful that's at when Wordsville Road junctions with 179. Anderson Windows, it's being done very well, but money's involved but what's happening to that? And so those are just my concerns, and I will, you know, I know the preserving of historical homes is very important, and that we should do all that we could. And that brings up another thing, and that is there's a beautiful house that's at the corner of 179, right when you get to 202, that's on the market now. It's owned by Reno of Frank's Pizza, and he's selling it because he has to. He's had it as a rental for many, many years, and it's probably going to sell. But, you know, it's a house that's probably would need to be, you know, best use would be to be turned into something commercial because of the noise. You know, although people that live in the city don't notice the noise. So anyway, I'll shut up.
Where was that one again, by the way? Where'd you say?
If you take past Frank's Pizza,
Yeah.
just before you do hang a right to get on 202, there's
Yeah.
a house that possibly even one of the Sears catalog homes. It's a gorgeous house.
Oh, it's for sale now,
Yeah, it's
right?
for sale.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
probably
yeah.
selling soon, I just bought pizza tonight, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
up to
okay.
Anyway,
I think that first house she mentioned is one you worked on a lot last year with DEP and stuff and everything, so I know you put a lot of work into that last year, Dante, and keeping an eye on it and stuff, so.
You had something, Francis? Go ahead.
Yeah. Being contrarian, I'll be contrarian. I appreciate the discussion you had about the zoning thing and the fines. And from what I can see, and I haven't gotten that far into the internet, is other municipalities don't have that fining language in there. You might wanna ask your zoning officer, or you, Al, if you're still working in East Brunswick, you know, whatever the zoning officer ordinance has or hasn't. East Amwell's had a bit of a history of zoning and construction being used as a club or retaliatory thing, and I'm not saying that's anything, but perception can be reality. And that ordinance, as you described it, and the logic, it's like a hammer in search of a nail. And if you don't need to have the nail on the end of that ordinance, especially when the zoning officer said it's never happened to her. I mean, if it became a sudden problem where there were people refusing to let people, or Google Earth, which is legal in the courts and things like that, do it, then you could always go back and change, but don't create a perception without a need due to a problem, because, you know, look what happened a year or so ago with the farmers and the 25-acre zoning and all the hoo-ha. Don't poke the bear, stick it in the nest. You don't, the odds are you or she would not need it. And that's just, you know, one person's opinion, but I suspect that you would hear more. The last thing we want going around is, oh, you need to fix this, and Frank, I saw your house and it isn't what it should be, tear it down. We don't need zoning or construction Nazis going around poking their noses and creating problems. I'm going back 10 years when there was 1 year where there were 16 complaints, none of which were founded, about my property. And they started recycling them. Oh, she's created a pond. And the funny part was they went down the driveway because the property behind had a indoor riding arena without a CO because they hadn't given the county the right of way they required, and lo and behold, they caught the head of the planning board using an indoor arena without a CO. We have enough conflict. If there's an obvious or whatever kind of problem, we can deal with it hopefully as adults without having too many clubs. And I use Northfield Bank, which has me somewhat surprised, because I see vehicles parked, construction vehicles and landscapers parked adjacent to 1084 all the time. You know, can we get together as a community and pick up stuff and put up some signs and some fencing around, help them, you know, do something with the roof? We can be good neighbors without creating any more conflict than we've already had. And just like they don't have the $250 a day for 30 days, I'm pretty sure the person who wouldn't open the trunk doesn't have the money for an attorney, because they don't sneeze without a $2,000 retainer. Nothing personal to the attorneys on the board. Or 2,000 or 10,000 or whatever. Keep it simple, be nice, talk to people. And I asked the zoning officer about 1084, and there was an anonymous message that was left on her voicemail. You know, and that's I'm like, oh God, here we go again. Anyway, good luck. I entertain the next motion of closing to the public and adjourning, and have a nice Mother's Day, the mothers of you around.
Thank you for
Thank
the
you.
feedback.
On the others, yeah.
Any other comments from members of the public? Okay, seeing none, without objection, we're closed to the public. Let me just say, I'm reminded that to make a comment about the zoning officer. So I really appreciated that she's been coming to night meetings. In fact, this evening when she couldn't come on Tuesday because of a family situation, she came tonight and is here tonight dealing with residents. And so many residents have come up to me with appreciative words saying not only is she a nice person and experienced and very knowledgeable, but she's using the kind of discretion that we want in the township. She's helping people. She's answering their questions. People have been very appreciative that we now have a zoning official back in the town. And, you know, she's enforcing her duties in a way I think that really is in keeping with our community, which is to try to avoid problems, help people work things out. Because, I mean, that bottom line, that's what we'd like. We'd like folks, you know, to work together as members of the community, and so that we don't need to enforce a whole lot, right? And I'm pleased with the number of residents who've been appreciative of her work and also want to have us work together, because I mean, that's really the way to do it. So.
I'll add to that too. I've actually had the opportunity to spend some time here while she's here, and she's very people orientated, I think
Yes.
would be the right language, and she's helpful. She doesn't seem bothered by, you know, the questions, and there's a backlog. I mean, the one day I came, there was probably, I don't know, I don't exaggerate, 10 people waiting for her with plans for stuff, you know, and stuff that's just kind of been dragging along, and
Yeah, things that
she
haven't
she
been
handled
tended that she's now
she
doing.
handled it well without stress or frustration, and well, she had a couple difficult cases in front of her, so I think it's appreciated. It's a good find, Al. But,
Yep.
good find.
I just suggested you guys interview.
No, it's-
I haven't played.
Well, it's
What's your
great,
name?
but it's the
Thank you,
kind
though.
of person that we want in the town,
Absolutely.
because I think what we're trying to do is to work with our residents and to get everyone on the same page and pulling on the same oar, and I think she's
Yeah.
doing a great
I
job of
agree.
doing that, so
I agree.
I wanted to commend her. All right, and you too for finding her. Anything further from anyone? If not, take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Mike gave a thumbs up second, all in favor?
Aye.
I've seen somebody doing
Aye.
that.
All right, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Oh.
Linda.
I just
Have a
hope
good
I
Mother's
get
Day.
defendants with you guys as lawyers, because they're gonna get lost.
Jenna.
Thank you, by the way, for your feedback.